Welcome to Lunch and Learn with Industry. Our talk today is a question and answer session with a panel from Microsoft, Avista Utilities, and Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories entitled Software or Electric Power or Anything.
My name is Zweigle. I work at Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories in Pullman, Washington. I used to say right here in Pullman, Washington, but since so many students are who knows where, I can't say right here. So right in Pullman, which is where many of you either used to be going to school or will be in the fall, unless you're graduating. And then we have four guests today, or three other presenters today, and it's just going to be a Q&A, which is how we set this up. So this is our Lunch and Learn series, and John's presented at the Lunch and Learn in the past, and it's just a great opportunity to hear about what life is like in industry and to be able to maybe network and talk to people and learn more about options for your career. So we have John Campbell from Microsoft Research. He has a double major and a minor at Washington State University, and he runs a group that specializes in accessibility technology. I've really enjoyed getting to know John over the years. So I've learned a lot about accessibility. It's eye-opening. I really should know more, frankly, but you guess you learn, and so I really appreciated getting to know him. And then also Kerri Lewis, who is also from Microsoft, and she's the general manager of strategic sourcing. And over the last 14 years, she's led teams at Microsoft in new product introductions, channel management, design, demand, supply, alignment, and she served 2 years as chief of staff to the CVP of Microsoft's manufacturing and supply chain. And then we have Josh DiLuciano from Avista. So we've got two different industries here. We got software, Microsoft, and we got electric power with Avista. So I think that gives a good perspective for questions. And Josh has been at Avista since 2006, and he's held a wide variety of roles and became the director of electrical engineering in 2017. So Josh is also a US Navy veteran. So thank you, that's awesome. And serves on the board of the West Central Community Center. So, and like I said, my name is Zweigle. I run a research group at Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories. So really this is, previous Lunch and Learns have been a presentation followed by Q&A. We just decided to do just a pure Q&A. So the floor is for the students. You can ask via chat. I don't know if your audio works. If it does, you're welcome to ask via audio, but if not, via chat. And I'll kind of moderate and field the questions from chat. So whoever wants to ask the first question, take it away. If nobody does, okay, I was going to say I have one prepared, but it looks like we have one. So here's a question from Alicia. If I don't net an internship this summer, is there anything I should focus on over summer break, like personal projects, interview practice, or extracurricular activities, etc.? So I'll let our panel. Yeah, Kerri.
Yeah, I can answer that. I actually, one of the, I didn't include in my bio, but one of the other things that I do is I sponsor actually our college hiring program. And so I'm very familiar with the whole recruiting process, at least as it is inside of Microsoft and in devices and specifically, as well as what we've learned from benchmarking and networking with other technology companies in the area. I see the question and examples that were provided by Alicia. Like, yes, all of that. I mean, you want to make yourself as marketable as possible when the interview season kicks up again. And that definitely happens in the fall. Most interview sessions start in the August-September timeframe for most big technology companies that are hiring. I can only speak from that perspective. I can't speak from small companies or startups. So the more you can create relevant experiences for yourself that will resonate and translate in some of the roles that you'll be applying for internships at other companies, the better.
Yeah,
but
if I can
network as much as you can. Meet people, do informationals. Sorry, John, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say that when I did interview training, and I did a lot of recruiting for WSU over the years, and one of the things I went back to is in the interview training that they used to do. They used to say we look for smart, passionate, driven people that want to change the world through software, hardware, and services. Now that was a very Microsoft-centric viewpoint, but trying to think of like how you map to each of those things was a really easy conversation for me to have with a lot of college students, right? So SMART usually happens to be like, how are you doing in school? Are you able to listen to your current bosses, which are your teachers, right? So doing well in school helps that. But passionate is the one that I think really stands out. And some of the stuff that Kerri was mentioning and that was mentioned in the suggestions, that's what I really looked for, is that if you aren't really interested in the field you're about to spend, a 20, 30, 40 year career in, then that's kind of a problem. So the people, if you can't get an internship, I get it. I had problems getting internships myself as well when I was a student, and the economy had tanked similarly in my junior, senior year. And the bottom line is find personal passion projects, like learn something, do something, even if it's not novel, at least doing something is something for you, right? And I think that's a place where a lot of people get confused. They want to make something new and different. Like, no, it's the whole Marines, like, this is my rifle, this is my gun, like this one is mine sort of vibe. And like that project that you're making is yours and you're learning from it. And the things that you find interesting are the things that I, as an interviewer or a recruiter, I'm going to ask you about. And I want to see that little spark of like, ooh, you've got cool ideas of where you'd love to take this if you had more time. So for me, that's one really important area, is like, how are you showing that you're passionate about the field that you've devoted 4 years of your life, or more to so far, and are presumably devoting the next 20 to.
I would just echo what was shared. I always think about, I've heard John say that over and over again over different meetings, and that passion and just keep practicing and doing what you can to develop your skills is so important. So even if you don't get that internship, how can you keep showing you're growing and learning, getting ready for the real opportunities or other things that'll show up? So we have that same sort of exposure, and again, focused on how are you going to keep growing and demonstrate your interest. Because you interview, we were going to hire 14 students this summer, and we're going to interview 100 of them. And how do you stand out amongst your peers like that? And that's not narrowed from the 300 applications we get. It's really being able to demonstrate that passion and commitment to what you're doing. And then when we're interviewing people, most of the time we're focused on your interpersonal skills. So getting to the final interviews is important. And then when we're meeting you face to face, we want to figure out if you get along with our teams in the different departments. Because we're such a collaborative organization, being really smart and hardworking doesn't do you a lot of good if you can't get along with anybody on our team. So getting your practical skills is really important, but figuring out how you can work well with others is just as important.
Yeah, I think that was one interesting realization of doing hiring and being on the other side of that equation, is this idea of, I'm hiring my coworker. So are you in my interview room acting in a way that I would want my coworker to be? Because in 2 weeks, if we hire you, I hope that we're able to have a nice, great conversation and have good ideas and work well together, for whatever definition that is.
Yeah, good question, Alicia. And by the way, I like Kerri's comment about networking. So you're networking right now, which is fabulous. I mean, that's initiative to show up here and ask questions. What you can answer in the text later, what field you're studying. As a matter of fact, anybody asking questions, you can also put your field of study if you like. Okay, from Tamra, I'm also concerned I get a lot of automatic rejection emails without an interview. I'm a junior, so it's like my last chance for an internship. So any advice from us on what happens when we just get those rejection emails that even feel like we didn't even get in the door, which can be very frustrating?
Yeah, I mean, I'll build on, I think, a topic that I mentioned a little bit earlier, and see, hopefully that resonates for everyone. Just applying to a job online is really hard to differentiate yourself. Like, most companies are receiving thousands of applications for, a fraction of those that will actually be job interviews. So being able to differentiate yourself in a way that will stand out is important. Part of that, I would say, and I highly recommend, is, your network, making connections with folks, even when you're not looking for a job, is super important. What I would do is I'd go out and I'd send folks a note, explain what you're interested in speaking with them with, and then, set up a conversation with them that's really about wanting to learn more about what they do in their day-to-day, what their job entails, what some of their biggest challenges and problems are that they're trying to solve, et cetera. But educate yourself as much as possible on what that, that work environment might look like, what that type of work might look like, so that when you're in the interview process, you can actually speak with more credibility and as someone that has a little bit more experience or knowledge about what you're interviewing on, as opposed to coming in there kind of blank saying, go ahead, ask me whatever you want.
Kerri got me thinking. I've had, in the last year, thinking of all the students in our region graduating, I've had 2 students contact Avista asking questions about engineering. They're in the program at a school, 1 student from Eastern and 1 student from Montana State. So, in our region, all the universities, I've had 2 contact the company asking questions, right? That goes a long way. They're going to get direct access to myself or an engineering manager to talk about what their interest is, grow and broaden, and get kind of a foot in the door that builds that connection. Hey, I have this opportunity where I know this person and we've had that interaction. So how are you growing and reaching out? And that's hard. It's hard to stretch out. And they might say no, but if they say no, at least you try, right? So I think you should be thinking about how you can build that network, communicate, reach out to those organizations, just ask questions. Even if we don't have jobs, just asking the question goes a long way.
So most of the engineering disciplines are required to have a capstone course. Now, granted, that's senior year, not junior year, but a capstone course is direct exposure to people in the industry. So I've sponsored senior design projects at WSU for the past decade. Most recently, I've actually been doing it with the mechanical engineering department for reasons. But it's a great opportunity to get exposure to sort of a micro internship. The other thing I'll say is that when I was graduating in 2003, that was right at the height of the dot-com crash. And so my freshman and junior year, they were begging me to leave school. And I said, no, I want to stay in school. But then by the time it was ready for me to graduate in junior year, it was like, nope, sorry, the economy tanked. There's nothing out there for you. Don't give up hope, right? I was actually a second choice for an internship at Sandia National Labs. And they were like, well, he's all right. We'll see what happens. And it worked out really great. The other thing to remember is that there's always grad school. And I know that's kind of a trope, but it is really true in that you get hired in different buckets depending on if you're in school or if you're not. So if you graduate and then you've been out of university for a year, many companies will put you in this industry hire bucket, and that's a much, much higher bar. Whereas it's a lot easier to get in the university recruiting bucket because you have special recruiters and they'll give you swag and all these sorts of things. And so even if you don't plan on finishing graduate school, being in graduate school can be a way to maintain that opportunity. And so it's a good way to say, like, I'm just gonna keep going. If you're actually passionate about the field, it can be a way to maintain that eligibility, double down on these other things that you need to do until the economy recovers.
That's actually good advice. I'll share a personal story along those lines. When I graduated from Washington State, I struggled to get a job. And I think the economy wasn't that great. And I kind of have I had my mind set on one company. And I don't know why. And I would say that's the worst possible thing you could do. But that was where I was at in my life. And they gave me a rejection letter. And I thought, okay, I was kind of annoyed and frustrated, right? And it's hard when you get rejected too. It's hard not to take it personally. So I went to graduate school per John's feedback. And I actually kind of tailored my research a little bit around that company. And then when I graduated, I got a job offer from them. And I had both those job offers hanging on my wall for a long time as kind of motivation. They rejected me and then they offered me a job. So there's a little bit of as hard as it is to hear, it's kind of annoying advice. Don't give up, but don't give up, don't get frustrated, because I think we've all experienced those kind of rejections. And also per John, sometimes going to school can help extend those opportunities. Okay, let's see if there's other questions. Anybody's welcome to ask a question in the chat. And if I'm going to ask my own of the panel until I see another one come through, but please.
So there was one mentioning about a master's degree. So
Okay.
I did get my master's degree at WSU, and I went to undergrad at WSU. One thing to be aware of is going to WSU and having that brand loyalty is nice, but at the same time, many people do actually look down on going to the same undergrad and graduate school for those two. So think about what your goal is, right? Like WSU may be inexpensive and convenient, and if you have professors you can get along with, then maybe that's a good idea. But if you're in an area that you're not thrilled about, then it's a whole lot of money to be spending that you could be better served by going to a different school, even if it is UW, right? And so think about that. Like my master's, I ended up doing it in Bluetooth scatternet formation algorithms. And I can assure you, I hope to never see another Bluetooth scatternet formation algorithm. I've never used any of that, even though I have a very nicely bound book on my shelf with my thesis. And that's not at all uncommon. So I think if I could have done it again, I would have considered what other universities would have had programs that would have helped me go deeper into areas that I was more passionate about rather than picking kind of the default. I mean, it worked out. I'm happy with where I've ended up, but I think I could have been more selective and gotten even better results.
I'll build on what John said. I mean, I have an MBA, so I went back and got my MBA like 10 years postgraduate from Seattle U, which was a different school for sure. I will add the business component to this. Like your master's degree, you should think about in terms of an ROI for the amount of money that you're going to put into it, because they're not cheap programs. What are you going to get out of it? Think about the fact that, 2 years later, or depending on how long the program is, but 2 years later, you're going to be competing with folks that have an undergraduate degree with 2 years of work experience. And so make sure that what you get out of the program is going to compensate for that, because who you're competing for those roles when you graduate are going to have that type of experience.
Right, and a master's degree, sometimes you can end up in a place where you've now specialized in some people's eyes. And so if you don't like that specialty, you're now spending your time trying to fight with a recruiter about that. I remember in undergraduate, people said, oh, you were a math and computer science double major, you must like algorithms. And I was like, whoa, don't put me in that bucket. I never said anything about that. But then you spend all your time trying to fight that, stereotype that they have in their own mind. So if you go to a master's degree program that you don't like, or that says something about you that you don't like, then that's probably not achieving the goal you're looking for.
You guys, when you're talking, it reminded me of something that I give advice for, transferable skills. We have people who apply for other entry positions that are kind of technical, but not engineering, waiting for internal engineering positions to open up. So we have field designers and field technicians and people who do field work that apply, get jobs, and they're still decent jobs. They get in the organization, and then when we hire open positions internally first, and so they oftentimes get first bid rights on the next engineering position that shows up. Mm-hmm. And it's really successful so that's another thing. They're working in the industry, they're working in an organization that they're passionate about, building all their internal knowledge, and then they have this degree that they can transfer into when the time comes. So that's been a good path for some of our employees as well.
Yeah, another option is contract positions. So it's not to say that there's a clear path from contract to full-time hire, but again, it's a way to work directly with industry professionals in big name companies doing real stuff. And sometimes the requirements are different because they're like, well, we're only hiring you for 6 months or a year, so we're okay with squinting a little bit on what we might otherwise want. Don't assume that it's a full-time job. There's all the whole permatemp stuff that's happened at various places. So it's not a clear path, but sometimes you can leverage that into a full-time position in the right circumstances. And either way, you're going to get access to really smart people doing really cool stuff.
Good. And by the way, I think this is being recorded, so we're going to go back and edit out the part where John said it might be okay to go to UW. Don't worry, we'll take care of that. Although I will say, since it's being recorded, I think WSU makes this available for people to watch afterwards. So if there's somebody watching this recorded, welcome, and hopefully this is helpful to you. But I will say, I'll put a little advertisement in for the Lunch and Learns. They're great to come to live because networking is such an important part of people's career. And and the students that are live here get a chance to just directly ask questions and interact with the presenters. So the next Lunch and Learn is April 2nd. And okay, I just wanted to put that commercial in. So the next question that I'll put on here that I see is Todd Vanek asked, what about an engineering management master's degree? We can start, how about if we start with Josh? We'll go Josh, then Kerri, then John on this one.
Yeah, I guess it just depends what you're trying to get out of it. And I've coached a lot of students and other folks who are like, well, I'm not sure if I want to do a technical degree or a management degree. And in our organization, you have to demonstrate some technical competency before you move into a leadership role. Mm-hmm. And so I'm okay with people learning and broadening their understanding, but I probably wouldn't expect somebody who got their master's degree enter into an organization at a management level. So I just want people to understand, just because you got a engineering management master's doesn't mean you're going to start off in management. You're going to probably have to do some work in the organization, learn the organization and the business before that steps up. But I don't have a preference against it. I'm just careful when people, what their interest is and when they step into that, because that conversation has come up before is, well, I just graduated with my management degree. I'm ready for my leadership role. And it's like, sorry, we don't roll that way. You gotta show up and do some work for a while too. So, but I know they're really strong. And I actually advise a lot of mid-career professionals to go after that management certificate, because it gives them that business knowledge that they really need and that leadership stuff. Even if they're in a technical role, it's really helpful for them.
Yeah. I kind of feel this similarly. Kerri, you have any comments on that?
I think every school has different curriculum for that degree. I agree with Joshua. Like it's easier to go from being a technical person with technical competencies to being a manager than it is to try to do it in the reverse. And so I think you have to have credibility first, and you have to have confidence in the area that you are trying to lead and manage before you should be worrying about, can I manage effectively in that role?
Yeah. I've had this kind of hard conversation with a couple of employees over time, and it says, well, I have a master's, so I should get the harder jobs and I should get paid more and I should get these preferential things. And our organization is really performance-based. I have people with just their bachelor's degrees who get more work than people with their master's degree, and they get compensated more and they get more special projects and they get more because their work ethic is just so strong. So it's a good thing to do. I'm not against them. You got to figure out what it means in your organization. It doesn't necessarily mean you're a preferred employee just because you've got that certificate, that master's.
Yeah, in my experience, it's definitely echoes, both Kerri and Joshua's, that we tend to hire managers from within. We promote people that demonstrate good work. The joke sometimes is that if you do really, really good work as a dev or a PM, we'll take the work away from you and make you do a whole different set of skills, which is kind of ironic. To Josh's point about a master's degree or whatever, I've never actually used my master's degree in a direct sense. And in my primary job, outside of Microsoft research, when I was at other Microsoft roles, I didn't really think of I've got a master's, therefore I know different stuff than other people. The reality is, as a master's is kind of a opportunity to go deeper in one specific area of whatever chosen domain, right? Computer science or electrical engineering or whatever. And so I knew how to dive deeper into an area, but that did not mean that my programming skills or my design skills or whatever were any different than anybody else. And I think that's kind of the stuff that Josh was mentioning. And in the same sense, in Microsoft research, there's a ton of PhDs running around. And the difference really has to do with, am I more applied or am I more theoretical? A lot of the PhDs are trying to do these high level thoughts and really encapsulate big ideas in their heads. And sometimes that translates to actual production level stuff, and sometimes it doesn't. And, for me, I'm more interested in the practical application. And so, it's the type of work that I want to do. And advanced degrees sometimes empower that and sometimes don't.
Good. One final comment I'll make on the management discussion before we answer the next question is, managers a lot of times are the mentors. And so they're they're not only managing, but they're also really mentoring the people in their group, whether it's software, hardware, whatever, power. So like a good manager, at least at SCL, like let's say software, for example, a good manager has got to be able to look at a piece of code and understand it all the way down to the most fundamental level. And that comes with experience. So I think an engineering management master's degree can be helpful. Kind of depends. I think John mentioned it kind of depends where in your career. Maybe Josh said that sometimes mid-career. So anyways, hopefully that feedback helps you, Todd. Tamara asked, is it too much to work and do a master's during evenings? I quit my job to go back to university, but I have thought about UW Bothell because they have a master's degree, but I hear stretching out your master's makes it hard to finish. Anybody with feedback? Before I ask the panelists, I actually, Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories has a program where you can continue working on your degrees or whatever while working full time. And I actually went to WSU from 2004 to 2013 part-time and knocked out a master's degree and a PhD. And it worked out for me. I found a way to make it work with the rhythm of my life. But you know, everybody's different. It was really convenient that Washington State was just across the street. Of course, nowadays, it doesn't matter where you go. You could probably get a lot of the courses online. So you don't necessarily have, you know, that convenience factor for me is not as important. So I think from my perspective, it depends a little bit about how it works with kind of like your work-life balance and your passions. So that's my experience, but I'll see if any of the other panelists have feedback on that one.
So I work, oh,
go ahead, Kerri, please.
I worked full time and went back and got my MBA and had a newborn. So all three of those things, it took longer. Like I to be honest with you, like I had to adjust my ambition based on what I could actually commit to from a personal standpoint. So, you know, it took me a year longer to get my master's degree and my MBA. I, you know, had very limited choices about back then about where I could go to school. There's a lot more online programs now all over the country that now are allowing you to do some sort of executive, you know, program, executive graduate degree program. It's a lot of work. So it'll depend on how busy you are in your regular work day, and that's your first commitment. And then, you know, how much extra time you have that you're willing to devote to, you know, further academic pursuits.
So,
go ahead, John.
Yeah, so my wife did her master's in psychology while working after college. So it was an evening program. And as Kerri mentioned, it was a, you know, space limited. Like we picked the university that was in our area and had a compatible program for what she wanted to do and that sort of stuff. The primary reason she did that is because she wanted to be a clinical, like an actual therapist. And the master's degree was key to unlocking that because there are actual legal requirements for that. We don't really have that in computer science. We don't really have that in EE for the most part. So what you're really talking about is unlocking maybe a new area that you didn't have access to. Like you're really interested in graphics or design or something like that, or HCI, and you didn't get to do much of that in regular school, and people won't let you try that out. And so you're trying to redirect yourself. But I think the critical thing to think about is, what are you trying to do at that point in your career? Like if you just got done with school, like, do you really want to continue on more school? Or should you be trying to think about, how do I establish myself in my career, you know, get to know my employees? Would you be better served by either doubling down on work-life balance and establishing a good balance for yourself and your family, whatever that's defined as? Would you be better served by engaging in employee groups? Like I know Microsoft has tons of awesome, you know, groups that are into all kinds of things, whether it's social things or, you know, like nerdy things like, you know, cars or photography or woodworking or whatever, right? So spending that extra time getting to know people might be a better use of your time in the short term than that degree right away. Maybe later in your career, when you want to redirect, it might be more valuable, for example. So just, again, think about what you're trying to get out of it.
What are you going to get out of it, right? If you're going to go do it, don't do it for the piece of paper. Do it because you're going to learn and grow and broaden your understanding of something, and then it's worthwhile. And you can take as long as you need. And don't feel shame because somebody's going to do it in 12 months. So you'll be like, what the heck? How did you pull that off? And there's going to be some people who take 3 years, 4 years, 5 years for different things. And it's okay. It's all okay, right? As long as you're growing and learning from it.
Okay, good. Let me ask the next question here. This from Venera, who's a professor at Washington State. Probably everybody knows that. Many of our students do not feel prepared enough for their internship jobs. What advice can you offer to them, either to make them feel more competent, or to prepare better?
That's the point. Like I remember going to Sandia National Labs, and like my first week, I was like, I didn't learn any of this. I am so unprepared. And then by about week 3 or 4, it was all of a sudden like, whoa, I can actually do this. Like I understand how this works. I've been able to learn the things I needed to learn. I can actually do real work. And that was both terrifying at first, but then insanely satisfying, after I'd been there for a little bit. So yeah, just embrace it.
Yeah, we hire people just finishing their freshman year to all the way their senior year. So we know everybody's at a different level. My experience is when you're hiring an engineering student or computer science student, you guys are being taught how to problem solve and self-teach and figure things out. And that's what you're going to have to learn, is you're going to have to do some self-learning and self-teaching and explore ideas and get a chance to tackle some real problems. And so you just need to be able to express you're comfortable kind of figuring things out and learning and applying yourself the best you can, because we don't expect our freshmen, people who just finished their freshman year, to come in and design anything or understand our construction standards or how the power system works yet. We just need somebody who can do some hard work for 3 to 6 months and enjoy what they're learning and growing.
Good. Okay, next question. So we have about 20 more minutes. We'll end on time. Okay, Iris Jones asked, how has your career path differed from what you envisioned as an undergraduate? How much do you feel the opportunities you had steered what direction you took your career versus deciding what you wanted to work in some area?
I'll try, because I didn't stay directly in design. I started out in semiconductor design when I got out of school, but that's not where I landed. I know very few people that I don't know if Joshua and John are going to prove me wrong, but I know very few people that 10 years into the career are where they started. Like there are so many opportunities out there in terms of roles and jobs and type of work that you probably don't even, aren't even aware of. And so I would spend the first, couple of years out of school in my career figuring out what I don't want to do, because that's a lot easier than what you do want to do. Because there's just so much out there. Like expose yourself as much as possible to what those opportunities are, get educated as much as you can, ask questions. As you get to play, the I don't know card for a couple of years. Like do that relentlessly in the beginning, just to get as much knowledge and information as you possibly can. But yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Yeah. So for me, I if you had asked me as a junior in college where I wanted to work, I would have said TiVo, right? Like I love those devices. They were changing TV. It was like in the living room computing. I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like it's something very different. And then I got an internship at Sandia National Labs, and I got pegged as the database guy, right? Like web and database. And so when I got hired at Microsoft, that's what they said, like, well, you've done this, so we're okay with hiring you to do something like that. And that was both frustrating, but also a great learning experience, like accepting, like, fine, you'll give me a job and I'll do the thing that I can do reasonably well, but I know that Microsoft is big enough that I can pivot, right? So just embracing the ability to learn and grow and then eventually pivot. And so did I ever expect to end up in Microsoft research? I dreamed of it. I remember going to all their talks, but I didn't think I'd ever get in. And did I ever expect to be in accessibility? No, absolutely not. But all the different little pieces of things that I sort of maintained on the side led me to that. But I never would have expected that. And like, as Kerri mentioned, it's just, you find the opportunities, you find the things you like, you don't like. Like, I know for me, one of the things I realized early on is I'm a dev, but I'm too much of a PME dev. Like, I like the customer. I like thinking about how people actually use my stuff. And so I wouldn't be a good fit for deep operating system stuff because I'm too far away from the customer. And so where I've ended up in accessibility is a good fit because I interact with real people and then I try to use software to solve real problems. And for me, that works a lot better than other things I've done in the past. And that's okay, right? You find your path and you make it work.
Yeah, I'll point out for me, it's kind of interesting when after being in industry for about 5 years, I knew two things really well. I knew how to program. I felt very confident in my computer programming skills, and I knew signal processing. And I applied at Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories, that was a power systems company. And I thought, there's no way I'm getting a job here. I don't know anything about power systems. But I went in there in the first interview, they said, oh, you know digital signal processing, you're hired. And I never saw that coming, not in a million years. So I would also point out that if you learn fundamentals, you might be surprised the kinds of opportunities that it brings up. And of course, computer science is applicable to just about everything. I don't know if all of you are in computer science, but any fundamental, EE, circuit design, signal processing systems, control systems, it's amazing the kind of jobs and opportunities that can appear that you would never imagine. For me, never in a million years did I ever think I'd be working in the power industry, but all my skills applied, which is so cool. Okay, let's see.
Greg, I want to add on to that just real quick, if that's okay.
Sure.
When I was in high school, I was convinced I was going to be an aerospace engineer. And I ended up enlisting and I worked on aircraft, but I really loved communication systems. So I was an electronics tech who fixed radars and communication systems. So when I started at WSU, I was convinced I was going to be an engineer who focused on RF systems. And then I took a power class and I was like, man, I really like power. So I emphasized on power. And then I took a protection class. I was like, man, I'm gonna be a protection engineer. This is awesome. and then I got to Avista and they have a rotation program where we try different things. And I was like, oh man, I love distribution engineering. I wanna move back to the Palouse and be an area engineer and kind of run how our system runs locally. And then I never did anything like that ever again. I got into project management. I got into leadership. I got into 100 other things. And so I think what people shared is you have these opportunities and you'll find what your niche and your strength is. And it's okay to go down those paths because you're going to keep learning and there's going to be these opportunities and follow that. So I think it also goes with Iris's question down below where she making that choice. You're always going to have those choices. I mean, I could have chosen to stay on the technical. I could have ended up in the job posted that I wanted in Pullman. My wife and I sat down and talked about, should we go back to that job or should you stay on this leadership track that you're on? Which do you like more? And I like the leadership stuff more. So we stayed on the track we're on, but you have these opportunities and just keep giving it your best and follow where you want to go because they're going to show up. There's going to be lots of whys in the path.
Okay, good. Let's see, 10 minutes. I'll ask, there's another one from Iris here, Iris Jones. Thanks for all the questions for those of you that are asking questions. And then I might make maybe a couple closing statements. But if anybody has any additional questions, you can try to squeeze them in here at the last minute. So Iris asked, have you ever had to make a choice between working in a job or field where you felt like you would have a bigger impact or a job or field that could lead to more personal opportunities or pay more? How did you find the right balance for you?
Yeah, so that definitely applied to me. So I'd been at Microsoft for about just shy of 10 years. I was knocking on the door of senior, which is a pretty big jump. And I'd been there for a while. I had invested heavily on making sure that everybody around me knew that I was doing all the right stuff. And then this Microsoft research thing came up. And one of the big things that in general, our company doesn't tend to do is you don't tend to get a raise and a promotion moving across teams, because what they don't want is they don't want to encourage poaching. And so usually the sort of unspoken rule is if you move over, you stay the same level and then you can move up in your new place. But naturally there's going to be this lag, this delay after you've moved because you got to learn new stuff. And so I'd spent a ton of time trying to really double down, really get good at what I was doing. And then this Microsoft research opportunity came up and I'm like, oh no, like I'm really passionate about this area. I think it could be really cool and different. I've always wanted to work in Microsoft research. But if I just stay another 6 months, I might get promoted and make more money sooner and all this sort of stuff. And I went back and forth, back and forth. I talked to a bunch of people, did a lot of soul searching, had plenty of nights where I was literally up all night with feeling like I was going to vomit. It was terrible. And what it came down to is I talked to one of my karate students who happens to work at Microsoft. And he's like, okay, so Microsoft research is saying that they want you to come work on the thing that you like doing. Why are we having this discussion, right? And it's like, yeah, you're right. The correct choice in this case is I'm staying maybe because I'll get a promotion, maybe, or I can go somewhere where I'll be, in theory, very happy and doing cool stuff. And if you're doing cool stuff and they're happy, you'll probably get a promotion anyway at the right time. And so it was one of those risk reward sort of things. And making the jump was in the end the right choice. And looking back, it's silly for me to think that I would have stayed longer in that other job or passed this up. But I can understand at the time how tumultuous it was.
Yeah, good answer. Any other answers, Kerri or Josh?
For me, I think it depends on where I was in my career. Like early on, I wanted to be financially independent. So I'll be honest, like the first few years, it was, I'm going to go to the jobs that pay me the most money. Until you get to the point where your experiences and what you learn from those opportunities and the contribution you can make and the impact you can have becomes compensation for you. And that becomes more valuable than the difference between a few $1,000s here or there. And so I would say it depends on where you are and kind of what your goals are and what you're trying to get out of the opportunity. Because I don't think it's one size fits all for everybody.
Yeah.
It's a great question though.
Yeah.
I think the other thing I'll mention, since Kerri, you kind of brought it up, when we have these lateral moves, a lot of times people lateral move in between companies. So in a larger company, that's one big benefit, is that you can change almost your entire career with the same health plan and everything else. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
But when you're changing companies, it's a pretty big thing. And I've done interviews with other companies, and I was just like, so you're asking me to basically upset my entire life, travel to downtown Seattle instead of to Redmond, and you're offering me $1,000 more a year? Like, this does not make sense to me. Why would I do this? And if I was really unhappy with my career, if I was really unhappy with what I was working on, maybe that would be a good choice. But, when it's like, well, you're working on databases here, and now you can work on databases at this other company, and we're going to pay you the same. Like, unless there's a really, really big upside on the other side, you got to really question that.
Yeah, that's good. All right, we'll do the last question. Before we do that, I'll make one more commercial. So the next Lunch and Learn is April 2nd. It's Gary Steele, who's the CEO and chairman of Proofpoint. It should be really good. So if you've enjoyed this and you want a chance to ask questions from the CEO of a leading cybersecurity company, you might want to come back in 2 weeks. And if you're watching this online, please join us live if you can, and tell your friends. So that's my last commercial for Lunch and Learns. So here's the question from Lili Gia. And I think this is a good question. You say, I'm not sure whether it's proper to ask this question, but I do think there's a really good question. I think we've all felt this way. So I'll ask the question, maybe Josh, I'll give you first crack at it, since I didn't give you a chance in the last question. But have you ever felt tired of work or felt stressful competitions and lost ambitions? I think we all have. I know I have, but I'll let Josh start if anybody.
Yeah,
else.
I was going to type this out, but my career, I feel like it's been like a sine wave where there's really high peaks. Like, man, everything's awesome. This is so great. I love everything I'm doing. And then there's going to be a shift, and it's going to be like, oh, I'm in the slog and I'm loathing what I'm dealing, and it's just really hard and painful. And then it comes back out. And so I think, and I talking to other people, we all go through that. And for me as a leader now, it's that resiliency, being able to recognize where I'm at on that line. How am I feeling about my work? And if I feel like it's going down on that valley part of it, I need to know what I need to do to recharge. For me, I like to dive into a technical challenge, even though I don't do a lot of technical work, and explore and learn or contribute in the community. So it may not be something that I can fix in that valley at my workplace because I'm going through it and it's going to be hard at work. So I figure out other ways that I can help ride through those low points and other aspects of my life, that work-life balance that John mentioned. There's other avenues to express yourself. And so if my work is a valley, I express myself in other areas, and that's okay. But I think everybody I talk to goes through that, and your true friends will say, yeah, it's hard right now. I'm in that valley. And then you help people through that. But I think it's okay. People go through that in their careers.
Yeah. Kerri or John?
I love the way Joshua explained it as a sine wave and not a step function. Like it's there are periods when it feels like a slog and it's not terribly motivating. And I think finding, there's a point at which you have to give that some time, because sometimes it's just a matter of patience. Sometimes it's a matter of, refocusing. Sometimes it's a matter of, pivoting an approach if it feels like you're getting kind of into a frustrating position. But let's just say you've gone through the process of doing that and you still feel like you're kind of stuck in that valley and you can't get out. It's probably a good signal for you that you're not in the right place and it's time to try something else. Whether it means a new environment, new opportunity, new company, whatever it is.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I mean, the whole sine wave thing, we've had those discussions. There's periods of intensity and there's periods of relaxation, just like anything else. I think the salient thing to think about is that your job is a relationship, and you will have as an intense and a tight-knit relationship and spend about as much time as you will with whatever significant other you choose, in many ways, sometimes more depending on the job. And so understanding that, just like with the relationship, there's going to be ups and downs and how you navigate those. And it's okay that you grow a little bit apart from time to time and then back together. But there are certain times where it's like, your relationship's over. Hey, the relationship with your job is over and it's time to look for something new. And I think it's tough in both situations to know when that is, but you just have to use your best judgment and figure it out. I know, each time I changed teams, it was at one of those kind of, for the most part, one of those low points where it's like, this isn't working, hasn't been working for a while. I'm not happy. I'm not doing my best work because I'm not very happy about it. So what can I do to change it in order to be happier and therefore be better at my job and that sort of thing?
Yeah, good question. I think it's particularly relevant now. I think the past year has been challenging for everybody. I mean, I personally get a lot of satisfaction from working with other people, working on teams, and when everything's remote like this, even this meeting, it's more fun to be in person. So I'm really looking forward to things getting back to normal soon. So thanks for the question. Thanks for the panelists. Really great job. Thank you. And thanks for the students. Thanks for all you students that spent an hour with us. We really appreciate you showing up, and I hope it's been helpful to you and giving you a chance to network a little bit. So thank you all, and have a good rest of your day and weekend.
To learn more about the Lunch and Learn with Industry webinar series, follow the link in the description, and we'll see you next time on Lunch and Learn with Industry.